Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another evening of gaming with me, Seal the Centurion. I hope you're all having a good one. We're going to be diving back into Assassin's Creed Odyssey this evening. However, before we get into that, as is our standard practice, we'll be having our daily devotional from Honey from the Rock, a collection of devotionals written by a young Abraham Kuyper. So if you're interested, we'll take the first part of our stream and go through this. We are on number 37, entitled Take the Shoes Off Your Feet, which comes from Exodus 3, verse 5, of God talking to Moses from the burning bush, saying, "Do not come closer. Take the shoes off your feet, because the place where you are standing is holy ground." There has to be a transition from being engaged on the lower levels of this world to lingering on the mountaintop of God's holiness. That's what the Lord expects of us. To say that faith has to penetrate every part of our lives, and on the basis of that principle to resist such profound awareness, come close to being overly spiritual in a way that undercuts all true adoration, praise, and worship of the Lord of glory. That awareness is very obvious and real to others. Whoever sets such a requirement wants already here and now what first of all is possible up above. They arrogantly imagine that they have attained it. This doesn't really lift us higher, but drags us lower. The nature of our lives, even as God's children, is such that they are still being lived in a world that is dead set against our Father. This is an opposition that exists outside us and all around us. But it is also an opposition that is definitely still found in our own flesh and the stirrings of our own souls. Such opposition demands that we clearly recognize the crass, concrete, and sharp distinction between our lower level of life in this world and the higher ground of Jesus' kingdom. It also requires that people reflect on the way that the prophet Ezekiel spoke about God. It requires that they always keep their eyes wide open to the real differences between the holy and the unholy. Granted, we may definitely have to pray without ceasing. The direction of our lives unquestionably has to be heavenward. Every thought flittering through our minds that doesn't come from God or turn us towards Him, we have to stifle even as it's being born. But sadly, the reality of life now is simply that time and again we fail to pray without ceasing. We regularly veer off to low level of ungodly thinking. We often indulge in sinful images before the battle against them has even begun in our hearts. This is why Moses received a sacred command as he did. This is why Moses received the sacred command he did. It's why through that... the phrasing here is a little wonky. It's why through that man of God, every other human being does as well. Let me start the paragraph over. This is why Moses received the sacred command he did. It's why through that man of God, every other human being does as well. Before we make the transition from unconsecrated to consecrated ground, we are commanded to take the shoes off our feet. This is why Moses received the sacred command I just skipped again. More than anything, It's necessary for us to demonstrate and prove by what's on our feet that we no longer belong to the things of this earth, and that they no longer belong to us. Our feet are designed to walk in a paradise where nothing hurts, bruises, or injures them. But they are ill suited for terrain that produces thorns and thistles, and where razor sharp rocks jut from the ground. That's the reason we take precautions for such terrain by putting on the footwear we do. That's why, like people in the Orient, we slip out of it when we walk into the smooth surface and soft flooring of a well-appointed home. It also explains why this footwear is associated with what was held in low esteem. It explains why a humble slave was assigned to untie and remove a person's shoes. It explains why an even lower level slave was charged both then and even today to wash the dust and dirt off a person's bare feet. This picture gives us both an image of as well as a basis for a correct understanding of our spiritual condition. The person who is clean, says Jesus, has no need of having their feet washed, for they are completely clean. Only feet that repeatedly come into contact with the fallen world make a person unclean. That's the reason why, as brothers and sisters, we are called to provide the service of foot washing for each other repeatedly and continuously. By that ministry, the dirt that sticks to us is removed and prevented from destroying us. It is removed by a higher spiritual strength that is expressed by us as brotherly love. But this isn't enough. In every sacred activity and with every act of worship, the Lord wants us to remember to loosen our shoelaces once again. It's not enough to simply to pray, to sit in church, to participate in the sacraments, or to listen to the reading of God's Word. It's much more important to participate in each one of these highlights of sacred life in the awareness that we are walking on holy ground, and that we have left the ungodly ground behind us. It's more important that we first prepare our hearts by leaving the ordinary things of our lives behind and approach with sincere and holy attitude. It's also more important that we come after having untied the shoelaces on the shoes which we've been walking through the world, and that protect us from it, because now they serve no useful purpose. Now we're standing on ground without thorns. Well, without thorns is putting it too strongly. Thorns are still present in the burning bush, but the glory of the Lord exposes them. It even glows in them and shines through them so that we see them for what they are and pay careful attention to any power they have to hurt us, a power thereby diminished. A lamp that guides our feet shines on that holy ground. It's a light that illuminates our path every step of the way. The Lord's will is that during this hour of prayer, praise, thanksgiving, and eternal celebration, we experience freedom from the weight of the world and escape its filth. What God puts in the hands of his children when they pray is not a spade for working the ground. It's not a trowel for building walls or a sword for waging battles. He gives them a golden harp for celebrating his praises. That is how our shoelaces need to be untied and our feet scrubbed before we enter his tent to enjoy fellowship with the Almighty. Otherwise, we'll be guilty of letting ourselves be diverted by the contaminating fellowship with the world. Someday, when we have our last look at this world, we'll take off our shoes forever. Until then, every night as we lie down to sleep, we untie our shoelaces before we present our evening sacrifices of prayer to God. That's when, spiritually, to extend the image, if we may, by using an image that definitely conveys the heart of reality. Each one of us, again, needs to shake the dust off their feet as a prophecy of what's still coming. Then the expression, I am going up to God's altar, will convey what is truly in our hearts, whether we're in the house of prayer once again, or not on holy ground. Again, if any of you ever question why I love reading Kuiper, he is a very good writer. And once again, a very good devotional. And it is a important thing for us to remember. Even something simple. What are shoes? What are their purpose? They're to protect our feet. That is their sole purpose. But we are to take them off when we enter holy ground. Because even on holy ground, even if something hurts our foot, everything is illuminated. But everything is done to His glory in the end. And that's one thing that I really like about the Reformed tradition too, is it changes your perspective on things. And many, many, many Reformed churches are still traditional, as is the term a lot of people tend to use. We still have piano, we still have organ, we still sing hymns and that kind of thing. We don't have drums and guitars, we don't sing the latest hit release on K-Love on the radio. We sing songs and hymns and spiritual songs. And it's not the music that you listen to every day. At least generally, we don't listen to it every day. If you're weird like me, you might listen to it more often than not. Because, that's just me. But it changes your perspective. There's something about this that's different. There's something about this that is separated from the world around us. And so often it's like, oh yes, we need to be in the world, but not of the world. And I love that I'm wearing this shirt. I can do all things through a verse taken out of context. That verse is so often taken out of context. And it's like, yes, we are to live in the world because we are living in the world. But we are not to be of the world. We are not to have those worldly desires. We are not to strive to store up treasures for ourselves on earth, but treasures in heaven. And that's one reason why I like the traditional worship style over the contemporary, is because it reminds us this is something different. It's not common. It's extraordinary. Extraordinary is an extraordinary. Not just ordinary, it's beyond the ordinary. And there's so many people that just, church is just a chore. You go to church on Sunday, And then you go to grandma's house for dinner afterwards. But that's it. That's the only reason you go to church, is so you can go to grandma's house after church and have a plate for Sunday dinner. You don't go there to listen to the sermon. And if you actually listen to the sermon, maybe you wouldn't necessarily go there, because so many churches are just about having a good time, singing all these songs that are so high energy and getting that emotional response, triggering that emotional high, and then just letting you go on with your day. Now that you feel good. They don't deal with hard topics. They don't deal with the unpleasant topics that we have to talk about. And they most certainly don't convict you. And that's something here that is a thing that often we have to understand. And frankly, I think Kuiper could have continued into this with the foot washing analogy. When it comes to washing feet, in the end, we will take off our shoes, and that'll be the last time. Because we will no longer be walking through the thorns and thistles of this world. We will be moving on to a new world, where everything will be illuminated in the light of God. There will be no more moon, no more sun, for he will be their light. No more day, no more night. No more tears, no more pain. That's something that needs to regularly be brought to mind. Because if we don't regularly think about it, we forget. Well, that's our devotional for today. And now we are moving on again to our playthrough of Assassin's Creed Odyssey. Why am I what? I'm in whose way? I know where you're hiding. Who's hiding? A war spear. Okay, I'm going to go up to the synchronization point that we were near. I assume we have to return to... what's his face? The Spartan adopted son of Nikolaus. Standing pillar. It's just a pillar of... it apparently looks like an altar or temple that used to be here and then has since collapsed. Because you see one pillar falling off the backside there, and then another pillar off the front. Although that's probably the top of this pillar. That's another pillar there. So it looks like that pillar stood there. This was here. That's the top of this one. And that pillar stood there. And then that rested on top of these three pillars. Interesting. And bandit camp. Yeah, bandit camp. And/or a tomb? That is very much underground. A black sheep. It's been raining all day. You can see all those are most definitely underground from where we are at. Sanctuary of the Muses. How amusing.
I should stay hidden if I don't want to fight.
Can we... Oh, I missed. Oh, no, you don't. Yeesh. Yeah, it just springs from the mountain there. It's like, surely there's gotta be some sort of cave entrance or something, right? Oh yeah. Ambition, the wise warrior, deliver the springs to the conqueror, return to Stentor. That's the next one that we need to do, is returning to Stentor, who's all the way back over there. I mean, there's a couple of things we can hit up, like... Let's hang out here before we return to Stentor. Maybe level up it a little bit. Maybe find the entrance to this cave. Which, I think we found it. Cave of the Oracle.
The Oracle of Trophonius. I wonder if the cult's working here too.
Yes, but the most famous... It's interesting that they put this in. Everybody knows about the Oracle at Delphi or Delphi. Yep, you're not gonna let me pick it up, huh? Well then. But there were multiple oracles. But the Oracle of Apollo at Delphi was is the most famous. Because supposedly, she had a very good track record when it came to the prophecies she displayed. No, whether there was any actual like supernatural things going on there, don't know. However, oh yeah, they're like kings, emperors, like I believe even Persians sent ambassadors to inquire of the oracle at Delphi. But at least from what we gather, based on the archaeology of the site, it is believed the most generally accepted theory is that the oracle would go into the lower chamber of the temple. And there she would inhale fumes that naturally rose up through the cracks and like crevices in the floor. And they would cause her to hallucinate and see visions and things like that. And that's where the whole